straw to talk about fasting right after you guys got to eat a lovely dinner. But it is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. It's provided me with a ton of health benefits when I was really not well in my 20s. And then surprisingly, a profound impact on shifting my mind state from a place of anxiety and frustration to a place of gratefulness. So in that respect, I love it too, although I'm not saying it's easy. The past 10 years, we've got a lot more research about far-reaching health impacts of fasting. Can you guys still hear me? Yeah. Okay. And there's some less arduous ways to achieve the same effects through a fasting mimicking diet, and I'm going to talk about that today too. And it comes as a much-needed time because we are in a world of diseases of excess. So speaking of that, in the last 50 or 60 years, more than any other time in evolution of humans, we have access to not nutrient dense, calorie dense, nutrient devoid, and toxic even foods. And this has changed the shape of people, our bodies, our minds, and everything. Even just in the last 10 years, we've seen a percentage growth in the incidences of these diseases that are somewhat preventable by diet and lifestyle. So to talk about how fasting can help, I'm going to talk about what it is. Is it better with my mouth closed or further away? I'm not sure. Close. Okay. So fasting is your body's adaptive response to food deprivation. We were designed to do this. Only recently have humans had continuous access to food. So your body starts with using its glycogen stores, and that's what happens if you go to bed and don't have a midnight snack. This stuff is happening while you're asleep. Then your body moves on to protein, which is lean muscle mass, and then when it realizes no food's coming, we shift to fat. And that is where you get the really protective effects of metabolism, and your body enters this regenerative state that we'll talk more about in a minute. So like I said before, for 99% of evolution of humans on Earth, there was scarcity of food and we weren't able to get it whenever we wanted it. And then from there, religious and cultural practice extended. Animal studies clearly show that it increases longevity. In animals, sometimes it's by a factor of 2, meaning they live twice as long when they fast or calorie restrict. In humans, we're not entirely sure yet, but calorie restriction is about 10 to 15 years. So a little bit of difference between prolonged fasting and time-restricted eating, which really is what most people know of as intermittent fasting, which is pretty popular these days. Time-restricted eating is eating all of your calories in only a certain number of hours of the day. So some people will do 12 and 12, some people will do 8 and 16. This does reduce your caloric intake and maintain healthy weight. But what happens is a lot of times people will end their fast when their body is using protein or amino acids for fuel, and you can lose some lean muscle mass this way. And you never really... Do you guys hear that? Okay. So we never really get to the point in the fast of the cellular regeneration, which is when your body's burning fat for fuel. So there was another study that showed that missing breakfast causes increase in cardiovascular disease and mortality of all sorts, but the sample chosen was a little bit questionable, so we're not sure there. In the prolonged fast, you get the autophagy, which we'll talk about in a minute, cellular regeneration, the weight benefits, and reduction in inflammation. But it's hard. It's really hard to go without food for 3 days or more. There's contraindications, hypoglycemia, hypotension, and lack of micronutrients. The way fasting works is the body is aware of whether it's fed or fasted through nutrient-sensing pathways. Insulin-like growth factor, mTOR, and pKa are how the body knows if it's getting food or not. If it's getting food, it's in a pro-growth state. Pro-growth can be good, but in excess, it's also pro-aging and can lead to common health problems like heart disease and cancer. Fasting down-regulates these pathways. So these are just an image of the two pathways, RAS and pKa for carbohydrate insulin, and mTOR for protein and amino acids. So fasting research evolved from the known benefits of calorie restriction. Dr. Longo is a researcher at USC Longevity Institute, and he completed a lot of animal and human trials on the fasting and what happens and how it compares to calorie restriction. So what we see is clearly IGF-1, TOR, and pKa are closely related to aging. Upregulation of these accelerates aging. And then if you look at the societies like the blue zones, the people that live 100 years healthy, they have the lowest levels of insulin-like growth factor of the general population. So one of the main benefits we get from fasting is through autophagy. It's like cellular cleanup. So when there's a lack of amino acids and glucose coming in and your body moves on to fat for fuel, this process starts to happen. Dr. Longo used a wood-burning train analogy, which made sense to me. So you have a train starting and it gets halfway through its trip and runs out of fuel. Whoever it is that keeps the train running would go look for stuff to burn. And so in the innate intelligence of the body, it's similar. Your body's going to look for the most damaged cells or the damaged components of cells to use for fuel. And then when you reach the station and refeeding occurs, you rebuild these cells and tissues which are healthy again. Another thing, ketosis, which I don't have time to explain in detail, is again when your body is using fat for fuel, this triggers stem cells to convert into active regeneration, and that PKA pathway gets shut down to allow that to happen. So water-only fasting, a lot of benefits here, the cellular cleaning and regeneration, a lot of drawbacks to gallstone risks, deprivation of nutrients, a lot of people get low blood sugar, low blood pressure, can end up in the ER if they're weak or sick. So there's some serious concerns of just the water. So the USC Longevity Institute was funded by the NIH to try to come up with some kind of magical combination of nutrients that would trick the body. And they think they've done that. High fat, lower carb, low protein that does not activate the nutrient sensing pathways. So the body thinks it's fasting while you're consuming a minimal amount of food that prevents all of these contraindications and makes it a lot easier. Even still, they confirm that patients are in ketosis and autophagy by day 3 of the protocol. This is just a little chart that compares calorie restriction, time-restricted eating, prolonged fasting, and fasting mimicking. And you can see the majority of the benefits happen in the last 2, and you get the same benefits getting to eat a little bit of food using this method. So the research that's out there, most of it is on animals at this point. Human clinical trials are going on, and I'll touch on those. But basically what we're learning is we could extend median lifespan through fasting. We could reduce cancer incidence and improve treatment outcomes. We reduce inflammation, enhance cognitive performance, improve immune function, that microbiome improves, and lose some weight in a positive way. The thing that was the most exciting to me was the research on fasting and cancer. So in animal studies, it seems that the mice that were fasted or doing fasting mimicking diet have reduction in tumor cells and enhanced effect of chemotherapy. They think that's through anti-tumor immune response and the reversal of immune suppression that sometimes happens in cancer. There was a human trial in 2022 that looked at different common cancer types and saw consistently in labs that patients who did 4 of these cycles had lower blood glucose and lower growth factors, which is an environment that's better for cancer treatment. So a theory as to why this could be, cells in an overfed state with constant nutrients may have damaged ability to do cellular cleanup, the autophagy, so they're less able to identify the cells that have started growing out of control. And then when chemo happens in a fed environment, the healthy cells are also susceptible to the cytotoxic treatments. If we incorporated some fasting mimicking diets, we do see a reduction in IGF-1 and glucose, which may help the healthy cells go into a protective resistant state and be less damaged by these treatments. In an interesting mice study, they found that, I think it was lung cancer, fasting and chemo together resulted in many total eradications of the tumors, while neither alone did. So neither fasting alone, neither chemo alone. So we talked about how fasting and fasting mimicking diets are protective of the normal cells. They make the cancer cells more sensitive to the chemo because the mutated oncogenes prevent the cancer cells from adapting to the stress response of fasting. And additionally, NAD and, and sirtuins are increased, which helps your body cope with the cancer treatments. Real quick highlights on fasting and inflammation. In human and animal studies, we see reductions in C-reactive protein, which is an inflammatory marker, reductions in sed rate, which is an autoimmune inflammatory marker, tumor necrosis alpha, and interleukin-6, which are inflammatory markers, although some of these effects are transient. In mice with inflammatory bowel disease, there was decrease in inflammation and increase in intestinal stem cells, possibly through improvements in the microbiome, and then some neuroinflammation reductions in some of the mice studies as well. Some fasting protocols may positively improve the microbiome. So compared to controls, people that did the fasting mimicking diet had a healthier array of beneficial bacteria, less harmful bacteria, and increase in short-chain fatty acids. Neurodegenerative disease and inflammation. So a lot of thought around some of these diseases coming from the brain losing its ability to use glucose for fuel. So the fasting mimicking diet may be able to increase insulin sensitivity in the brain and decrease inflammation that results in diseases like Parkinson's and dementia. And this is seen in animal studies. We don't have solid human studies here yet. Last but not least, fasting and weight management. So it's a simple plan. It's not easy, but it's simple. It can be used to accommodate lots of special food needs, vegan, low histamine, FODMAP, paleo, all the stuff that's out there. And the results seem to persist over time. So weight loss is maintained 3 cycles on, 3 months after. You still are maintaining at least 60% of the weight loss, the reduction in waist circumference, the improvements in blood pressure and lipids. And because of the autophagy, a lot of the weight loss is from visceral fat, which is the thing we want to get rid of. So you can see a picture before the ProLon fast and after, and then even after refeeding, the percentage of body weight stays down, as opposed to other diets that are extreme where often we gain the weight right back. It's low in protein, high in fat, moderate in complex carbs. It provides the basic essential vitamins and minerals. However, it tricks your body into thinking you're fasting, so you're still getting all these wonderful cleanup and regenerative effects. So basically what happens if you were to do this type of fast, day 1 prepares your body. Day 2, your body, depending on your metabolism, may be switching to burning to fat for fuel, and the cleanup process may be beginning. By day 3, you're solidly in ketosis and cellular cleaning is happening. And day 4 and 5, regeneration may begin, but even more profoundly after you start to eat again, because you're giving your body the fuel to repair what was eaten during the fast. A lot of support from reputable institutions here, and lots of media articles if you're interested in learning more. This is what the product kind of looks like. It is prepackaged and ready to go. We can try to help you customize it if there's certain things there that you don't like. Angela loves olives, so she likes to eat that when she's doing this.
I hate olives.
So, just to be clear though, before making any major diet or lifestyle change, it's really important that you discuss with your physician the safety for you individually. And then, interestingly, with the mice studies, they saw that middle-aged mice up until, I guess, what they would extrapolate to like 70 years old did really well with these fasting mimicking diets. But after a certain age, actually, it's beneficial to have more insulin-like growth factor. So if you're over 70 years old, this might not be the solution for you. Definitely a discussion with your primary care provider. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me talk about fasting, and I'm so glad I was with you.